You want to see something really scary?
You bet.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, this is really, really scary now.
I trust you.
Hello, internet fans. It's your old pal Rottin Roger DeMarco here from RepulsiveReviews.com. This week, we're going to talk about George Pavlov's 1986 film, Rawhead Rex. Alright, so here's the plot breakdown. Rawhead Rex escapes from his underground prison and goes on a killing rampage. That's pretty much it. Nothing complex about it, but guess what? It's violent, it's fucking metal, and it's awesome. Before we get into the behind-the-scenes stuff and just my overall thoughts of the film, first, let's take a look at Rottin Roger's Splatter Facts. We have 21 dead bodies. We have 2 titties. We have priest pissing. We have child eating. And we have cross crushing. Metal! Peter Lighton did the effects for Rawhead Rex, and he had about 14 or 15 people underneath him helping with the blood gags, the RV tipping, and the fire stunts and things like that. But Peter Lighton was responsible for the overall look of Rawhead Rex. When the budget went through for this movie, they had exactly 1 month from attaining the money to sculpting, molding, painting, and filming. Everything that a movie production takes their time on, location scouting, etc. They had 1 month to get this shit done. The movie actually shines. The movie does not even suffer from this time crunch. This movie is so wild and in your face, and like I said, it's fucking metal. It's a giant demon with a mullet, and his eyes glow fucking sexy red, and he can possess you. All he needs for this movie to be more metal is like a leather jacket, and he could like beat people to death with an electric guitar. Now, the original design for Rawhead Rex in the Clive Barker novel, he was essentially an 8-foot tall cock, which doesn't translate well to film. Can you imagine an 8-foot tall, muscly cock just roaming the fucking countryside, slaughtering everybody? So Peter Lighton took it upon himself to change the design, which Clive Barker was not exactly happy with. But hey man, listen, I probably wouldn't be standing here talking about this movie, and scratch that, I guess I'd still be talking about this movie if the killer was an 8-foot cock. But I love Rawhead's design. I love the glowing eyes. I love the double mouth. He's a very imposing villain. It plays very well. It's not a hyper fast-paced movie, even though the body count is so crazy. We get a lot of time spent with the lead character and his wife and his children. The movie itself does a very good job of conveying these relationships with the husband and the wife and the children. It feels very real. It feels very tangible. It doesn't feel made up. In this film, we deal with the theme of completely inept police officers, which is a slasher trope, which is just a horror trope. Someone will tell the police, this is happening, and the police will go, no. And then when they're finally on board, it's incredibly too late. And with this movie, spoiler alert, it takes a child getting eaten to make the police go, you know, maybe you're telling the truth about that 8-foot tall fucking heavy metal demon guy. I like the theme of an inept police force. They just can't grasp that they can't handle this. This was shot during one of the worst winters on record. They actually had to use hair dryers backstage to warm up extras in between takes because their fingers were frozen, their hair was freezing. It was just treacherous conditions in this film. It was so cold. It was 12 below during filming the fire stunt. So cold that the fire hoses that they needed to extinguish the flames froze up. So they couldn't even use these fire hoses to put out the fire stunt. And when you go back and watch this movie and you see the fire stunt, you gotta think, these people are crazy. The amount of risks that they took while making this movie and not having the proper ways to deal with them, it's a wonder that no one got seriously injured. There are reports in the behind the scenes footage and stuff like that of people smacking their heads on things, or people falling, injuring knees and cutting themselves up and stuff like that, because this was not an overly professional shoot. The film wasn't finished. It didn't have an ending. Most of the crew had left. They just were not going to deal with the conditions anymore. In fact, there was about 12% of the crew left standing, and the director begged as many people to come back as possible so they could finally wrap this movie up. He pleaded with them. They came back, and he managed to come up with an ending with the skeleton crew. The conditions on this shoot were so rough. I mean, you can't imagine 85 people being like, you know what? Peace. And they made about 5 full foam latex suits for Rawhead Rex. And they're basically a one piece from the neck all the way down to the waist. So the arms and everything is one piece to minimize the time it took to get the creature ready. The only problem with that is foam latex is not very durable. While filming these scenes of him running or him slamming people down and stuff, the seams would begin to tear. And so they would throw some cloth over where it was torn, or they would try to glue it back together. But basically by the end of the shoot, all 5 suits were completely destroyed. They just could not take the punishment that this production was dishing out. And essentially the Rawhead Rex mask was almost completely fixed in one position. So he basically has the same look on his face all the time. There were servos and motors and things like that in the mask, but did not work properly, 90% of the time. So any time, really, there's a close-up on Rawhead's face doing any type of movement, that is an animatronic head completely separate from the actor. 5 or 6 dudes running cables, keeping this thing moving. When you go back and you watch the movie, it's seamless. It really does a good job, but that just is a testament to practical effects, the amount of work that these guys put in it, and what they were willing to endure to get this movie done and do the best that they could to make Rawhead Rex terrifying. There's a couple of scenes where the monster itself is not that imposing, but they're really quick shots, whether it's too far back and it makes him not look that tough or whatever it is. 95% of the time, the illusion works very well. Now, the suit for Rawhead Rex was basically so invaluable to the production that whenever Heinrich von Schellendorf, who played Rawhead Rex, was in between takes and he could take this suit off, he essentially had bodyguards. 4, maybe 5, sometimes 8 guys take this suit from him and take it to a trailer and protect this suit. Because if this suit was to be stolen or anything like that, this is going to halt production. And they were not having any of that shit. And they were ready to break fucking fingers if you tried to touch it. This is one of the weirdest things about this movie. They essentially send him back underground with this weird talisman thing. Is shaped like a pregnant woman. I don't know whether this is just from Clive Barker's brain or what it is. He has a very odd knack for just this disturbing sexual tone. The only way you can defeat Rawhead Rex with this pregnant rock is a woman has to hold it. It's a very strange way to put an end to the villain. Maybe since Rawhead Rex was supposed to be a cock, the pregnant woman... I don't know these things, but maybe it would have been cooler if it was just a big rock dildo. And that's the thing about Clive Barker penning this that sets it apart from other horror films, is that the writing has this sort of maturity to it. This sort of commentary on religion and sex and family. It doesn't feel juvenile, despite some of the things that happen in the movie, like Rawhead Rex pissing in the priest's face. These seem like tropes of very cheap, slapsticky splatter films. While this is a cheap production that is a splatter film, it's not slapsticky. The material itself feels very mature. It feels like a movie that when you were young and you stumbled across this movie, it felt like this is for adults. This is an adult horror film. Not for nudity, for sexual content, or things like that. Just the vibe that this film gives off is not the fun popcorn movie. This has a very visceral, violent, angry tone with a lot of social commentary towards shitty police officers and shitty people, and how easily religion can manipulate you, how easily your faith can be questioned, and how easily you can look towards a false god. It's all in this movie, and it's all done very well, and I think that this is a movie that not a lot of people know of or respect. I feel like it's important. It should be in any horror fan's library. In my personal opinion, I'm going to give it 3 out of 5 blood drops. Because there are things about it that can improve or could have been improved, but overall, it's a fantastically violent film that deserves to be seen. So, I gotta go. Because after all, there's a lot of movies out there. Somebody's gotta watch them. So why not me? Right?